Esa estaba yo. Clapés, Coneqtia.
¿Clapés? ¿Cómo me has dicho?
Clapés de Coneqtia.
Clapés. Ah, sí, aquí. La mesa 17.
Perdona, ¿me has dicho las 7?
Sí.
Aprovecho y dame ya un...
Ah, vale.
Dime, ¿no?
Por favor. Muchas gracias. Voy a poner antes.
Buenos días.
Las 7.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias a todos por estar hoy aquí, tal y como está el tráfico, el tiempo. La verdad es que es estupendo que lo hayamos hecho casi a tiempo. Gracias por acompañarnos en la 5ª edición del Foro de Revistas. Un año más, este foro reúne al sector de los editores, anunciantes, agencias, distribuidores, colaboradores. Muchísimas gracias a todos por estar aquí. Gracias especialmente a los colaboradores que nos están acompañando, casi muchos de ellos desde el principio, a Deloitte, a Cedro, a NDP, UDNE, Ligatus. Sin vosotros esto no sería posible. Cada año nos esforzamos en traer un ponente de primer nivel internacional. En esta ocasión traemos a un gran editor, no un consultor, sino alguien que va a hablar en primera persona. Tenéis en la mesa unos cuestionarios de calidad para que nos ayudéis a mejorar de cara al año que viene. Y de nuevo, bueno, muchas gracias a todos por acompañarnos hoy. Antes de presentaros a Marcus Rich, me gustaría presentaros a Jaume Ferrer, es director general de Sport Panel y miembro de la Junta Directiva de Coneqtia. Gracias.
Buenos días. En nombre de la Junta Directiva de Coneqtia, muchas gracias por vuestra asistencia a esta 5ª edición del Foro de Revistas. Estos desayunos son ya un buen punto de encuentro esperado por todos los profesionales de este sector. Hoy tenemos el placer de contar con Marcus Rich, director general de Time, una de las editoriales de revistas más importantes del Reino Unido, con más de 60 cabeceras que son todo un referente. Marcus es un editor con una larga experiencia. Además de Time, ha dirigido The Mail on Sunday, Daily Mail y Micro, y también durante 16 años el grupo de publicaciones profesionales EMAP, que está presente en sectores tan diversos como la salud, la construcción, el retail o la arquitectura. Antes de su etapa como editor, Marcus trabajó en el mundo de la publicidad en compañías prestigiosas como McCann Erickson y Optimus Communications. Durante este 2016 ha impartido conferencias en los principales congresos de revistas como el Digital Innovation Summit de Berlín o el Congreso Mundial de Canadá. Estoy convencido de que esta visión privilegiada de nuestro sector servirá de inspiración para nuestros negocios. Muchas gracias por vuestra atención. Marcus, please.
Okay, morning. As you see, I've got a special lead here in case I try and leave the stage. Talking about leads, I've got a little bit of a cough because I managed to buy a dog that I'm allergic to. And I was talking to my wife about it last night, and she said, well, let me tell you, the dog is staying and you're going. So, I may be here a long time. Thank you for welcoming me to Madrid. Madrid has a very special place in my heart. 24 years ago was the last time I visited Madrid, and 24 years later, the girlfriend I was with is my wife, and we've been married 22 years, and it was all because we came to Madrid. Now, as I've just told you, that may not make 25 years based on the dog story, but it's still a good story about Madrid. So, what I'm going to talk about is the Power magazine brands, but really what I want to talk about is 5 reasons that we sit at a unique time when we can just see a sea change, in my opinion, towards marketeers and advertisers returning back to print as a powerful way of selling their products. 5 reasons why that is the case. And that's really why this visual looks like this. Firstly, that's my commute every day, so you'll be pleased you don't have to do that. But secondly, it represents platforms that have been on the up, coming on the down, and platforms that have been on the down, moving to the up. And I'm going to try and explain why, what my thinking is behind that. So the first thing is this, a media landscape in transition. And I think when we look back to this year, to 2016, the start of 2017, we'll look back and go, that was the period when this started to change. And I'm not going to read off a script, but there's some quotes that I want to read out that actually all occurred in the last 2 weeks. So the first one is from the Wall Street Journal 2 weeks ago. And it said, marketeers are reassessing the level of investment in the digital area because they're beginning to question what they're really getting in terms of return on investment. It went on to say, large online platforms are unaccountable, walled gardens, doling out limited information on how media or ads are consumed on their platforms. The day after that piece appeared in the Wall Street Journal, another piece appeared in The Guardian, which is an English newspaper, and it said, the U-turn has been led by the world's biggest advertiser, Procter & Gamble, maker of Tide washing powder, Fairy washing up liquid and Pampered Snappies, which has found that moving a lot of its marketing budget into targeted Facebook has backfired. He also wrote, McDonald's has just shut its YouTube channel because it realized we weren't reaching enough customers. A day after that, there was a piece from a company called eMarketer. They're a research company. And it said, the shift in spend towards digital advertising is accompanied by a trend of consumers blocking ads. 14.7 million Britons, 30% of British web users, will use ad blocking software by the end of the year. Then Martin Sorrell got involved in the debate. He said, there's some really strong evidence that engagement with traditional print is greater than engagement with so-called new media. And then finally, my favorite quote, have you come across Bob Hoffman, the ad contrarian? Has anyone come across him? Okay, he said, 5 years ago, digital advertising and social media were novelties with unlimited promise. Today, everyone has tried them. Everyone has an online ad program. Everyone has a social media program. We know what they can do and what they can't do. The industry can't continue to allow its lunatic fringe to tell us that it's magic and everything else is dead. We know better. Last week, there was also another furore when it was announced that Facebook had been overstating their video views by about 60 or 70%. So my first point is, not us saying it, but the external world is starting to question the value of this slavish move to digital advertising being the solution for all marketeers. Now, this is a difficult landscape if you're a CMO, if you're a marketeer. This is what you face to go from marketeer to consumer, the volume of choice that you now have, which is tagged on to the fact you have quarterly earnings call. You have huge pressure from procurement to buy everything as cheap as possible. And another stat that came out last week was the average length of time a chief marketing officer will stay in a job is about 18 months. 18 months, which is highly unlikely you're going to build sustainable long-term brand value when you're only staying in a job for 18 months. And the consumer is harder and harder to reach. Some interesting stats. Throughout this presentation, you'll only remember one thing. He used a lot of stats. The first stat is there's 7.2 billion people in the world. 6.1 billion of them have mobile phones. Only 4.5 billion of the people in the world have toilets. There's more mobile phones than toilets. The average person with a mobile phone looks at it 100 times a day. Now, if you've got teenage children, you'll realize that stat is 100 times an hour if they've got a mobile phone. In 2000, the attention span for consumers to receive advertising messages was 13 seconds. In 2013, with the growth of social media, that attention span had fallen to 8 seconds. That's 1 second less than the attention span of a goldfish. You have a difficult landscape, you have a difficult consumer to reach. So my second point is, what are the forecasters saying about the future? So this is Goldman Sachs. This is a very good report, which I'd recommend, and it's looking out. And it is saying in this report that there's going to be a major restructure in the advertising market. It's saying that the vast amount of undifferentiated, recycled, narrow content that's available is really not propped up by consumer demand. It's propped up by an ad tech system that's driven by finance, driven by venture capitalists, people looking for a return. And that system is going to break down because there's no consumer demand. And there's going to be a shift towards big distributors, and I include in big distributors telcos, Facebook, Google, and Apple, seeking out companies who can provide great content. And we've seen that last weekend. In fact, I was having a conversation with the gentleman down here. AT&T's purchase of Time Warner. The quote from the CEO is, "Great content wins out all the time." And we're seeing this shift between poor and unqualified content and companies who can't deliver content, distributors, looking for people who can deliver content. So my second point of why we're going to see a change is that there's going to be this alteration in the infrastructure, the base infrastructure of the markets that we work within. Now, this is a horrible set of figures. Avert your eyes if you're sensitive. But that's not being reflected in the current forecasts for advertising. Now, this is just walk you through the chart before I trip myself up. This is Enders, which is a forecaster in the UK. The very far side is the expected advertising revenue trend for 2017 post-Brexit. We really want to stay. Unfortunately, well, I don't know, we're not going till 2019. But you'll see from that Brexit has had a material impact on the advertising forecasts in the UK. And the people who are most challenged are to a degree the platforms that on the first 2 points deliver the best content. Newspapers, national newspapers in the UK are forecast to be down between 20 and 25% year on year for ad revenue. Magazines are forecast to be down between 10 and 20. Television, for the first time in the last quarter in England, was actually down year on year in terms of advertising, is forecast to be flat, and digital ad revenues are continuing to grow, albeit at a lower level. So why, if we're seeing this shift towards companies that create premium content, is there still this lag in terms of advertising perception and advertising forecasting? This slide is taken directly from a deck, an advertising agency deck, when asked the same question. And it came back this term. The term is the bifurcation of media. What does it mean? It means that the default advertising plan of the last 3 years has been television for brand building, and then the cheapest possible digital, ideally bought programmatically for coverage. Television for brand, digital for coverage, that's all you need as a marketeer. And what it means is that we, publishers, content creators, are the squeeze middle. And that's shown out in the fact that in real terms, advertising. So this is a chart that shows from the year 2000 to 2018 forecast, actual advertising in real terms will be flat. This is the UK. And all that's happened is digital has stolen share. And with that increased demand and that pressure from procurement, it's stolen share at lower prices. So it's driven down the price of all advertising. But that, today, is going to change. I've given you the first 2 reasons why we see that change. Let me talk to you about the third. And this is the third reason. The AT&T CEO couldn't have said it better, which is people will always want to hear a great story well told. So whether that's from the very early days of cave painting, which is great stories well told, or whether that's the fact that Ronaldo is now dating an ex-Miss Spain. See there? I've got my Spanish, yep. If that's true. And also the socialist government has lifted the veto on Roje. Is that right? It's good Spanish. People will always gravitate to a story well told. And why will they gravitate to a story well told? And they'll gravitate to a story well told because of this person. Now you're probably thinking, looks to me as though that was shot in 1970. Correct, that was shot in 1970. So what's a kid with a haircut that only a mother could have given him, supporting a football team that are not doing very well, got to do with stories well told? Well, that child is me. How many people work that out in the room? Nearly everyone there. That child is me, and that's my passion. My passion is West Ham, unfortunately, West Ham United. The only link is we have a Spanish right-back called Alvaro Arbiola. Used to play for Real Madrid. He's about 38. So he's not particularly fast. Stories well told to people who have a passion for subject matter is a very important part of the third reason we will see a shift back to print advertising. And here's the other reason. Because I've forced that passion onto my 3 sons. They were not allowed to grow up without supporting West Ham. If there's anyone in the room under the age of 30, be very careful if your parents have a very strange passion. And I'm going to show you some data that shows that passions, people's interests, are family orientated and handed down. They're a very important part of creating advertising success. And that's what we at Time Inc. do, and I can see on many of the tables, is that really the very heart of our business, the thing that differentiates us from Facebook, from Google, from Apple, from these other companies, is that we have people who work for us who are brilliant at telling stories, at creating content, understanding the passions of these audiences. Now, it's interesting, actually, that some of these passions also reflect in Madrid. So I was checking. We sell 1,500 copies a week of Now magazine. We sell 1,500 copies a week of Chat magazine. You are very active on NME, which is a music site. You have an above-average passion for yachting. Didn't realize that, but that's a good one. You also are 3 times more likely to go to our wine website, Decanter. I can understand that. But most of all, you are 4 times more likely to go to our cycling website, particularly because of the Vuelta a España cycling, which was won by a Colombian second leg called Quintato. Research, that is, from the top drawer. But this is our business. Our business is the creation of content for passionate consumers by people who understand how to tell stories better, in my opinion, than any other media platform. And we wanted to test that theory. Is that true? Is there a relationship with passion and their relationship to commerce? And we found some things. This was a study we did. 3,200 people and 1 anthropologist. I presume anthropologists are quite hard to find, so we could only get the 1. And there was a couple of things that were really, really interesting. The first one is social media has completely changed the way that we explain ourselves. And I'll give you an example. So 5-6 years ago, if you ever met anyone, or you're out for dinner or whatever, you generally introduce yourself by the job that you did. Yeah? Now people, because of the rise of social media, and because they become experts in social media, they don't introduce themselves by their job, they introduce themselves by their passion, which has driven the rise of vlogging and the rise of blogging. So I might go, hello, I'm Marcus Rich, passionate West Ham fan, really like prog rock, particularly Marillion. And they might go, well, I'm not going to talk to you. But in reality, people are now starting to define themselves by their passions, by their interests. They're more important. And we'll see that, because 80% of people say it's a constant. 77% of people say it's more than a hobby. It's a passion. It defines my life. 90%, remember anyone under the age of 30? Whatever your parents are into, and we won't go there, but they may introduce you to it, and you may be obsessed with it. 42% by a family member, and 3/4 have been passionate for more than 10 years. So people's interests is becoming more important in defining them as a person. And we and those magazines on your table represent their interests. I was talking to another lady who knows Trish Halpin from Marie Claire. Fashion, beauty as real passions for people. How does that passion, though, translate to advertising? So 62% of passionate people say they cannot resist spending on their passion. 50% say they're not guilty about spending on their passion. 50% engaged passionate people are more likely to pay for their content behind paywalls. 61% of passionate people spend over £50, now €50. Looking at the FX rate. And 44% are more likely to purchase from magazine brands. You've got passionate people, you've got people who can tell stories, And then you've got the final element of my third reason, and that's context. Context, 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 context. Two great studies. The Guardian did an excellent study showing that advertising placed in the right editorial context is likely to deliver a 40% plus improvement in the return on investment. And there was another study by, I think it was Nielsen, Catalina, that said, be very wary, advertisers, of placing advertising out of context, because you immediately draw a negative from the environment it's placed in. Many of you, like me, will have gone onto a website, gone onto your mobile, been looking at a piece of content, and then an ad comes up on the screen. You spend about 30 minutes trying to find the little cross to get rid of the ad. What's your relationship with that advertiser? It's negative. Of course it's negative, because he's just disrupted something that you are enjoying. If I cut out all of the advertising pages from that copy of Vogue and sent it to a subscriber, they'd send it back to me. And they'd send it back because they say, my experience is not the same because the advertising is part of the experience. Now, I'll tell you a little story. This may not translate, so if the translator's somewhere in the room, here's a difficult one for you. So I am a man of a certain age. Let's just say it's over 50. So therefore, because I'm a man of a certain age, I keep getting retargeted certain advertising on my advertising is for pants, undergarments, yeah? But it's not for normal undergarments, it's for undergarments that men who are over a certain age might need. Because, well, we won't go into detail because, but why? Now, one, I am annoyed that I am being targeted with these said underwear items. Two, the last time I was targeted with this ad, it came between a particularly nasty piece of social news, which was around ISIS, and another piece which was my sister talking about her hemorrhoids. Now that advertising is A, wrong, and B, completely placed in the wrong context. Context, context, context is so important, and that's my third point there. You've got passionate consumers who respond to advertising, particularly when it's placed in the right context. And here's my fourth killer point. It's not us that's saying it. We're not the people who are saying there's going to be a change. There's a number of surveys now that are showing that this is correct. So Ubiquity Payback 3 is a television survey. It's nothing to do with magazines. It's a survey done by TV companies to prove the power of television. But actually what the survey shows is that print is 2.5 times more effective than online display and delivers a 40% increase on ROI to digital advertising. Our own research says that you're going to get a 4 times increase in sales. In fact, your equivalent in America, the Publishers Association, have given every advertiser a guarantee that if their advertising in print doesn't work, they'll get their money back. The third area is non-human traffic. It's proven that premium content from our extensions, our digital extensions as brands, are less likely to have fraud, have greater viewability and non-human traffic. Now there was that website that was hacked, not recently, not the DNS thing that happened last weekend, but a website called Madison Lee. Has anyone come across Madison? Well, you won't have come across Madison Lee, but Madison Lee was the website where men who were married went to if they fancied being with somebody they weren't married with, if you get my gist. And it was hacked. And when it was hacked, surprisingly, it was found that of the ladies that were registered for the website, 40% of them were robots. So not a huge surprise for middle-aged men to find out that they've been signed up for. But my point is, there's a lot of fraud in the market, in the digital landscape, but not with us and our products as proven in research. Okay, this is another study from Millward Brown. Print is more successful than TV or online in persuasion metrics, like brand awareness, brand favorability, and purchase intent, particularly when enhanced with TV and digital. And I think this is another challenge for all of us. The idea, so I flew over yesterday, not today, that would have been quick. I flew over yesterday on EasyJet. And I booked, well actually I didn't book that, somebody else booked it, but let's say I booked it. I booked it online. But it didn't mean I made my decision online. It didn't mean that you could associate the fact that I clicked it, final click, that the brand had been persuaded by me going online. I made my decision through lots of other means, through print advertising, through word of mouth, through reputation. The final click doesn't determine that that's marketing effectiveness. In fact, quite the reverse. That's just the end product. And then very finally here, we have agencies starting to say it. And this is good news because another really interesting stat, Facebook take £82 billion worth of commercial advertising money. And only 23 million of that goes through an ad agency. So one of the biggest fears for advertising agency has got to be, if clients can buy Google and Facebook direct, what's the point of an advertising agency? And we're starting to see this. This is Lindsay Patterson. She's the global CEO of Maxis. And she says, as the emergent short-term micro-messaging world dominates, it's important we keep one eye firmly focused on the creation of longer-term work that has the power to drive leaps in business value by delivering potent brand meaning. A long-winded way of saying, let's start using proper planning, proper scheduling, and proper use of print. So that's 4 reasons why there's going to be a shift back to print. And here's the 5th, and this is the killer one, I think. This is a graph that says that by 74%, by 2021 rather, 74% of all advertising will be native. So if we go back to that Goldman Sachs report, it's saying that traditional disruptive advertising is not working. People are putting ad blockers on, it disrupts the flow. The future is going to be about native advertising. And I can't think of a medium with a skill set better than magazines to deliver native advertising. Because we have people who know how to tell stories, they understand passionate people, they're therefore able to marry those stories with those passionate people. And that's where the shift and the change will come from. The shift from traditional, programmatically bought, disruptive advertising to the need to tell long-term stories for brands over time, from great storytellers to passionate consumers. And this isn't my quote, but it could have been, because I like it. And this, I think, is the challenge for all of us in this room, is that we need to overcome this content as commodity mindset that has tainted so much of programmatic. It's resulted in what should be strategic buying decisions being relegated to procurement. I like to say procurement people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. But then I've got procurement people in my company, so they don't take 2. But that's the point. It's our job now with those 5 key points to move the message. If you're a CEO of a company that has a share price and you've relegated your marketing to a procurement job, surely you're not managing your brand appropriately. Surely you're not building the long-term sustainability of that brand and recognizing that that brand can be delivered and should be delivered in the appropriate platform for the appropriate message. That's my 5 key points. I'm now going to move on to a couple of examples of where we've tried to do it and take advantage of those trends. And this is the first one.
Put on the cover of the NME before we had a record deal. It helped us get a record deal.
So I've kept underground rock and roll alive on a weekly basis.
It's great that the NME still thinks we're alright and not a bunch of tossers.
He seemed impressed by the way you came in. Tell us a story. I know you're not boring. I was afraid that you would not insist.
Let's hear it for the enemy.
Okay, so this is, in publishing terms, was a very, very difficult brand. In 1980, you had 5 music weeklies: New Musical Express, Melody Maker, Sounds, Record Mirror, Disc, all selling over 100,000 copies, because the only way you could get news about who was touring, who was releasing an album, was through print. Now, of course, you can get it all. I lost his phone. You can get it all through this immediately. NME was the last standing music weekly. We weren't going to make a business out of trying to sell content to consumers who could get it, 3 days before the Thursday it was going to come out. So we had to rethink the model. To rethink the model completely, the first is, yes, we still create content. So we do 34 stories a day, 2 videos a day. If you go on NME Daily at the moment, the big story, the big breaking story is Professor Green has got a new single out. Not so big. The second one is Curate. If you go on NME Daily today, there's a spat between Jay-Z and Kanye West, between what really happened in that Paris hotel with Kim Kardashian. And that's about taking stories from the outside world and curating them for the market. Aggregation of stories. It also allows you to look at old stories and repurpose them. So Today in 1969, which, looking at the room, only half the room were alive in 1969, Led Zeppelin released Led Zeppelin 2. That ages you if you like Led Zeppelin. So that's a new story. And then Community is attracting stories from the external world. And the big story that's breaking in the community at the moment is who's headlining Glastonbury, which, if anyone's remotely interested, it's Radiohead. I can see you're not. Okay, so how you then take those stories, run them across all those multiple channels. So we do all that. But then how did we exploit that with commercial revenues? And NME is really the first example of taking advantage of native. And I'm going to show you two examples of native. So this is the piece about native, which is the majority of our revenues. Creative media, I call it native revenues, is the revenues up 35% to marry the size of the audience. And the two examples, and there's a little video on one of native, is just these two. So the first one is NMD. NMD is a new trainer by Adidas. It happens to be called NMD, which is useful for us because we're called NME. And so Adidas came to us and in true native fashion said, look, there's a bunch of new artists. We really support new artists. The trainer is cutting edge. We want your editorial team to do the whole issue, bearing in mind that it's not product endorsement. It's just reflecting the fact that Adidas supports cutting edge new music. And I'll show you a video of that. And the second one, which I think both of these are kind of fascinating, if you think that they're both, one is kind of fashion, but the second one, because we did one for Google Cardboard, that Google and Apple are both tech companies coming to traditional print to marry their marketing in a native way, for us to tell stories about tech in traditional print. That's the change. So this is for the 10-year anniversary. The whole issue was about the iTunes special and the lovely Britney Spears if you haven't missed it, who's reinventing herself as a new Justin Bieber, was on the cover. So let me just show you an example of that NMD native solution. Okay, so that was an example of, and I'm going to finish up here. And I've actually hit my time slot. on this final piece of native, so I want to, somebody asked me a really good question yesterday and said, what is native? It's quite a hard thing. They said, is it like advertorial? No, not quite. And this is kind of an explanation, I suppose, from my standpoint. So over here on the left, we have a piece in the magazine that's about food. And the artist is called Kano. He's a grime star. He likes chicken. But the point of the piece is that Morrison's are very keen, again, to shift their brand values towards cutting-edge hip-hop, rap, grime music. But from a native solution, all we're doing here is we're showing what he likes to eat, a piece on where he likes to eat it, a piece on the ingredients required. And the Morrison component of it is very much behind the scenes with a suggestion that if you went to Morrison's, you can get all of the recipe, ingredients, etc. And I think whilst native is a fantastic area, it's also going to be an area that's open to abuse. Because in the true sense of native, it's where the advertiser gives you full remit to deliver the editorial content in the way you want, rather than turning it into advertorial. Now, there is a little video at the end, but listening to a grime artist talking about chicken for 45 minutes isn't the world's greatest experience. So I will spare you that particular video. And like to complete by saying, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope there's some points that are worth noting. And I look forward to coming back to Madrid, and I'll take some questions. Thank you.
Este es el momento de las preguntas, así que por favor.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you for coming to Madrid and explain your experience. My name is Andrés Rodríguez. I'm the founder and publisher and editor-in-chief of a small independent company called Spain Media. We publish Esquire, Forbes, Rob Report, L'Officiel, and our local title, Tapas. My question is, of course, we are all excited about the news of the ATT pay $100 million for the company. I think we are happy, or I am happy, because the content has great value.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm a little worried because I don't know if the technological big companies has the sensitive to have the value for the content and the journalists for the managing in the future. What is your opinion?
I think that's a really good question, and I think it's a little bit of a dance with the devil that we're all having, which is, do we give our content away for free for Apple News? Do we give it away for free for Facebook, etc.? When you're competing against BuzzFeed and you look at the content and you think, oh my God, this is rubbish in comparison with this piece that we wrote for Esquire. And, but I still think, we have to be careful of the dance with the devil, giving our content away for free. But we have to use some stuff that we take advantage of. And B, I still think that ultimately people will see value in content. And I think those, because it's not just the AT&T deal, there's there's a Verizon Yahoo deal, there's a Comcast NBC Universal deal. I think we're starting to see that people are placing real value on content. And there's a survey actually by Deloitte which showed, they analysed the top 100 media companies around the world, and they said pure distribution companies have the lowest margin business. The second, but good margin businesses were content companies, but the highest margin media businesses in the world were those that married compelling and differentiated content with distribution. So you can see from that report why at this point in time there's this change where distribution channels are looking to marry content. I think a lot of them are coming to us and saying, can we have your content for free? And I think sometimes we're going, yes. And maybe we've just got to be a little bit more careful about how we do that, how we have that relationship.
¿Alguna pregunta más? Well, it looks like everything was very clear.
Good, I can get off this lead.
Thank you very much, Marcus. It was a great presentation. Thank you. Bueno, muchas gracias a todos. Espero que os haya gustado. Para despedir el acto, unas palabras del presidente de Ari y presidente de Condé Nast, España, México y Latinoamérica, Javier Pascual.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Gracias por vuestra asistencia. Muy brevemente, para cerrar este acto, me gustaría compartir con vosotros algún pensamiento en línea de lo que Marcus nos ha expresado en su maravillosa presentación. Primero, yo creo que para poner todo en línea y que veamos todo donde estamos, tenemos que darnos cuenta de que estamos en una época de crisis en general, crisis en todo, o no crisis, me voy a corregir nada más decirlo, no creo que la palabra crisis sea la adecuada, diría de cambios profundos, ¿no? Yo creo que allí donde miremos existen cambios profundos que nunca hubiéramos podido esperar hace muchos años. Hay millones de ejemplos que podríamos pensar, no se me ocurre a bote pronto las líneas aéreas, no se puede hablar de crisis, las líneas aéreas yo creo que van bien, pero qué duda cabe que han sufrido profundas modificaciones, ¿no? Han sobrevivido, todo ha cambiado, han hecho cambios, algunas han desaparecido, otras han quedado, pero ha habido profundos cambios. Pero como en ese sector, allí donde miremos, como digo, siempre estamos en tiempo de profundos cambios últimamente. Podemos pensar todo lo que ha hecho Amazon, todo el cambio que eso ha supuesto en el mercado de la distribución. Podemos pensar pues, los bancos, por ejemplo, también en profundos cambios. Es decir, estamos en épocas de profundos cambios. Incluso en sectores, podría decir, en principio parece como tan poco interés para la economía como puede ser el sector del taxi. Por poner un ejemplo adicional, hasta con los Uber y con Cabify, no dudéis de que estamos también en profundos cambios, ¿no? Por lo tanto, el hablar, siempre que hablamos de todas estas cosas y hablamos de la irrupción digital, hablamos de todas las cosas en los medios de comunicación, tendríamos que ponerlo todo en su contexto y decir, pues, los medios de comunicación, como un sector más, también están en un profundo cambio. Es un profundo cambio que afecta a todos en general y muy en particular, lógicamente, a los medios escritos. Ahí dentro de esos medios escritos yo creo que hay una diferenciación clara. Una está el periódicos, otras son las revistas. Creo que vamos a centrarnos en las revistas. La prensa tiene otros problemas diferentes. Entonces, ese cambio que nos está afectando al mundo de las revistas, yo diría que tiene dos características fundamentales. Tiene muchísimas, tiene muchas facetas, depende de donde le miréis, pues podríais ver o distinguir cambios. Yo diría que para mí tiene dos cambios importantes. Uno es la entrada de nuevos competidores para nosotros, los medios de comunicación, digamos, tradicionales. Es decir, ahora, sobre todo en toda la parte digital, ya nuestra competencia no son nuestros amigos con los que hemos compartido hoy desayuno, comida y muy buenos momentos, gente de fuera. Y yo creo que una segunda característica importante es también que el cliente, ya le llamemos lector, usuario, como queréis llamarlo, se ha hecho cada vez más exigente. Yo creo que todo esto, yendo en la línea de lo que ha hablado Marcus, las revistas se encuentran extraordinariamente preparadas para hacer frente a este nuevo reto que tenemos, a este mercado cambiante. Enormemente preparadas. Es cierto que, como he dicho antes, como puede pasar en la aviación o estará pasando en la banca, habrá que hacer cambios, habrá modificaciones, pero el sector como tal creo que está y va a enfrentar este futuro con un gran éxito. Los estudios que está haciendo Ari, que os está, creo, mostrando todos los Ari 360, muestran un poderío, una capacidad de llegar a un número de personas donde antes un editor simple de revistas jamás hubiera podido pensar, ¿no? Pero aparte de eso, y otra vez diciendo la línea de Marcus, yo creo que tenemos una fortaleza que no tiene nadie y que es la que nos va a hacer sobrevivir y sobrevivir en buenas condiciones, que es tenemos la capacidad de dar el mensaje adecuado, en el momento adecuado y a la persona adecuada. Eso no lo puede hacer ningún medio más que el medio revistas. Podríamos decir que podríamos tener un eslogan que decir medio revistas donde la publicidad no molesta. Es el único medio donde la publicidad se convierte en parte de la información y en una especie de complicidad triple entre el medio, el anunciante, el lector o el usuario, se llega a dar un mensaje con una calidad que no es posible hacerlo de otras formas, de otras maneras o a través de otros medios, ¿no? Creo que eso es lo que nos hace diferentes a todos. La publicidad, en nuestro caso, es información. Eso mismo, que ha sido así, tradicionalmente ha sido en todos los medios escritos, estamos trabajando y estamos cambiando para que los medios digitales sea así. Fijaros que eso es curioso, se habla mucho de los adblockers. Si hubiera una aplicación, una app, que no la habrá, yo creo porque saben que no va a tener éxito, pero la tecnología no tiene fronteras, que la pudieras poner encima de las revistas y te quitara la publicidad, yo creo que esa app no se la descargaría nadie, porque la gente quiere ver la publicidad. No estamos ante un cliente, lector, usuario que sea hostil a lo que nosotros comunicamos. Creo que esa es nuestra fuerza, creo que eso es nuestro futuro y estoy convencido que dentro de unos años, aunque es muy difícil, siempre decimos no sabemos lo que va a pasar la semana que viene, como a pesar dentro de unos años, el sector revistas habrá cambiado, como han cambiado todos esos sectores, pero será una pieza clave en la comunicación de todos los anunciantes y también, como decía Marcus, en los lectores que leen nuestras revistas y van a nuestra web y las visitan con pasión. Nada más quería deciros eso. Muchas gracias por vuestra presencia y espero que haya sido la conferencia de vuestro interés. Muchas gracias.